지금 시작하겠습니다. 아, 들리십니까? 시작하겠습니다. Hi, I'm Frederick, and today is my presentation, Media and Government. In late 2010, the social networking website Facebook was thrown into the news when its chief executive officer Mark Zuckerberg announced new changes to the site's privacy policy. Sorry, this is my voice. How about now? It's good? Okay. So, Mark Zuckerberg announced new changes to the site's privacy policy, although the announcement alone did not necessarily garner heavy attention from the news media. The involvement of the Federal Trade Commission lent up public interest. And Facebook provides 3 default options for the sharing information with everyone and friends of friends and friends only. And the FTC responded that the issue was of particular interest to them, but as of this writing, no official action has been taken. The New York Times articulated the discussion's central questions. What can government do to ensure that users have control of their own information, which might live on indefinitely on the web? Would regulation work, or should government stay out of this arena? Facebook stands by the rights of its users, arguing that adult users should be free to publish information about their lives if they choose to do so. However, Facebook did respond to the open letters and modified its privacy setting to make it easier for individuals to control their online identities. Yet the debate continues over online privacy and the government's role in maintaining this privacy. The US federal government has long had its hand in media regulation. Media in all their forms have been under governmental jurisdiction since the early 90s. Since that time, regulatory efforts have transformed as new forms of media have emerged and expanded their markets to larger audience. So government regulation of media. Major regulatory agencies. Through the 20th century, three important U.S. regulatory agencies appeared. That is FTC and FRC and FCC. They shape American media and their interactions with both the government and audience. FTC, Federal Trade Commission. They founded on September 26, 1914. The FTC came into being when President Woodrow Wilson signed the FTC Act into law, creating an agency designed to prevent unfair methods of competition in commerce. From the beginning, the FTC absorbed the work and staff of the Bureau of Corporations operating in a similar manner, but with additional regulatory authorization. Similar agency exists in Korea. The name is same, FTC, and also known as economic prosecution, because they have so big powers in economic business. Sorry. And next is FIC. First established with the passage of the Radio Act of 1927, the FIC was intended to bring order to the chaotic situation that developed as a result of the breakdown of earlier wireless act passed during the formative years of wireless radio communication. The FIC comprised 5 employees who were authorized to grant any broadcasting license and power level 6 radio station. FCC. Since its creation by the Communications Act in 1934, the FCC has been charged with regulating interest and international communications by radio, television, wire, satellite, and cable. The responsibilities of the FCC are broad, and throughout its long history, the agency has imposed several laws that regulate media. Regulation today. Today, the FCC continues to hold the primary responsibility for regulating media outlets, with the FTC taking on a smaller role. Although each commission holds different roles and duties, the overall purpose of governmental control remains to establish and bring order to the media industry while ensuring the promulgation of the public good. Structure and purpose of the FCC. The FCC contains 3 major divisions: broadcast, telegraph, and telephone. Their general responsibilities include processing applications for license and other filings, analyzing complaints, conducting investigations, developing and implementing regulatory programs, and taking part in hearings. And FCC's 4 key bureaus are the Media Bureau, the Wireline Competition, the Wireless Telecommunication Bureau, and the International. The structure and purpose of the FTC. Although the FCC provides most of the nation's media regulations, the FTC also has a hand in the media industry. As previously discussed, the FTC primarily dedicates itself to eliminating unfair business practice. However, in the course of those duties, it has limited contact with media outlets. Role of antitrust legislation. As discussed in Chapter 13, Economics of Mass Media, the federal government has long regulated companies' business practice. Over the years, several antitrust acts have been passed into law. Government regulation of business increased until the 1980s, when the United States experienced a shift in mindset and citizens called for less governmental power. The U.S. government responded as deregulations became the norm. Move toward deregulation. Media deregulation actually began during the 1970s as the FCC shifted its approach to radio and television regulation. began as a way of clearing laws to make the FCC run more efficiently, and cost deregulation truly took off with the arrival of the Reagan administration and its new FCC chairman, Mark Pollard. In 1981, the FCC began overturning existing rules and experienced an overall reduction in FCC oversight of station and network operations. The law and mass media. Media law has been much debated topic ever since the first US media industry laws appeared in the early 1990s. The contention surrounding media law largely stems from the liberties guaranteed under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which includes the freedom of the press. Okay. Libel and slander. As with privacy laws, print and broadcast journalists can protect themselves from defamation lawsuits by carrying out responsible reporting. Media personnel are legally protected when communicating a report outweigh any potential damage to a person's reputation. Recently, David and Victoria Beckham sued their former nanny for telling the tabloid that their marriage is in trouble. The nanny's contract contained an agreement not to talk about the celebrity couple's private lives. Copyright and intellectual property. Copyright law fall under federal jurisdiction and therefore identical across the country, includes literary works, musical works, dramatic works, and pictorial, graphic, and sculptural works, motion pictures and other audiovisual works, sound recording, and even architectural work. Once a work has achieved copyright, the copyright owner must grant permission for their work to be legally reproduced. After a certain number of years, a copyright expires and the work enters the public domain. The role of copyright and intellectual property in the mass media will be covered in greater detail later in this chapter. Freedom of Information Act. President Lyndon B. Johnson first signed the Freedom of Information Act into law in 1966 by requiring full partial disclosure of U.S. government information and documents. The Act helps the public keep track of its government actions, from the campaign expenditures of city commission candidates to federal agencies, management of billions of dollars in tax revenues. Because it allows everyone access to federal documents and information that otherwise would go unreleased, FOIA is particularly important for those working in the news media. sorry, I confused the slide. The equal time rule passed by Congress in 1927, the equal opportunity requirement was the first major federal broadcasting law. Legislators feared that broadcasters and stations would be able to manipulate election by giving one candidate ample airtime. Although candidates cannot receive free airtime unless their opponent do as well, the law doesn't take into consideration campaign funding. The fairness doctrine. As discussed in Chapter 7, Radio, the fairness doctrine was enacted in 1949 when applications for radio broadcast license outpaced the number of available frequencies. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act. In 1998, Congress passed the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or DMCA, to bring order to the largely unregulated online arena. Under this act, it is illegal to use code cracking device to illegally copy software, and websites are required to take down material that infringes on copyright. Censorship and freedom of speech. Censorship is defined as suppressing or removing anything deemed objectionable. A common, everyday example can be found on the radio or television, where potentially offensive words are bleeped out. More controversial is censorship at a political or religious level. If you ever been banned from reading a book in school or watch a clean version of a movie on an airplane, you have experienced censorship. Historically, many individuals have cited the First Amendment when protesting FCC decisions to censor certain media products or programs. However, what many people do not realize is that U.S. law established several exceptions to free speech, including defamation, hate speech, breach of the peace, incitement to crime, sedition, and obscenity. Classifying material as indecent, obscene, or profane to comply with U.S. law, the FCC prohibits broadcasters from airing obscene programming. The FCC decides whether or not material is obscene by using a three-pronged test. Obscene material has two following characteristics. One is causes the average person to have lustful or sexual thoughts. Number two, depicts lawfully offensive sexual conduct. Number three, lacks literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Material meeting all of these criteria is officially considered obscene and usually applies to hardcore pornography. Indecent material, on the other hand, is protected by the First Amendment and cannot be banned entirely. Indecent material has the following characteristics. Number one is contains graphic sexual or contain graphic sexual. Number two, dwells at length on depictions of sexual or excitatory organs. Number three is used simply to shock or arouse an audience. Material deemed indecent cannot be broadcast between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. to make it less likely that children will be exposed to it. Violence and sex comes in entertainment. Edwin S. Potter's 1903 silent film The Great Train Robbery, for example, is known for expressing the appearing, deeply embedded nature of violence in the frontiers experience and the American civilizing process, and showcases the rather spontaneous way that the attendant violence appears in the earliest developments of cinema. The film ends with an image of a gunman firing a revolver directly at the camera, demonstrating that cinema's fascination with violence was present even 100 years ago. Hays Code, although audiences responded eagerly to the new medium of film, some naysayers believe that Hollywood films and their associated hedonistic culture was a negative moral influence. Formerly termed the Motion Picture Production Code of 1930, the code is popularly known by the name of its author, Will Hays, the chairman of the industry's self-regulatory Motion Picture Producers and Distributors Association, which was founded in 1922 to police all in-house productions, created to forestall that what was perceived to be looming governmental control over the industry. The Hays Code was essentially Hollywood self-censorship. Next, rating system. As filmmakers began pushing the boundaries of acceptable visual content, the Hollywood studio industry scrambled to create a system to ensure appropriate audience for films. In 1968, the successor of the MPDDA, Motion Picture Producer and Distributors Association, the Motion Picture established the familiar film rating system to help alert potential audience to the type of content they could expect from production. And this slide is film rating of United States. Left side is English and right side is Korean. And this is television and video game rating. And left side is television ratings and right side is video game ratings. Okay, next. Intellectual property issues in the mass media. Since its inception, the internet has posed problems of who owns the content. Over the years, the government has struggled to find ways to introduce copyright protections into the online environment because, unlike other forms of media, the internet enables users to make an unlimited number of copies of material and to transmit that information around the world. Online creativity and intellectual property rights. Congress passed the US Congress passed the Digital Millennium Copyright Act in 1998 to establish a protocol for online copyright matters. Yet the nature of the Internet causes very different copyright and intellectual property issues than older forms of media do. Because of the ease of sharing information online, for example, the DMCA has not worked as Congress expected. Copying and sharing materials online is relatively simple and as such, piracy and right infringement run rampant. In fact, many have argued that despite the DMCA's attempt to stop piracy, in practice it has done nothing. It has done nothing. Copyright protection in cyberspace. 1996 period to the passage of the DMCA, the World Intellectual Property Organization established two treaties, designed to update and supplement the major existing WIPO on copyright and related rights, primarily in order to respond to developments in technology and in the marketplace. The RIAA versus piracy. Widespread piracy problems arose during the late 1990s with the popularization of technology allowing peer-to-peer P2P music sharing. Suddenly, software such as Napster, Score, Aimster, Audio Galaxy, Mopus, Grokster, Kaza, iMessage, and LimeWire popped up on computers everywhere, allowing access to free music around the world. And fueling online piracy, however, in 2003, the Recording Industry Association of America put the laws established by the DMCA into practice and began a campaign to stop music piracy. The law and the online interaction. The internet is a relatively new form of media, but it is not exempt from media laws. Terms of service agreements, as well as legislation such as 1986 Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, regulate internet use. As you will see in the following case studies, when it comes to criminal use, the internet is not as anonymous as it seems. TOS agreements. All software and most internet sites have terms of service agreement to which its users must comply. Terms of service (TOS) are legally binding rules that an individual must adhere to in order to use a particular piece of software or service. iTunes, for instance, makes users agree to use their downloadable material for non-commercial use only and state that Apple is not responsible for lost or corrupted files. Anyone who has installed a new piece of software or logged on to social networking site has agreed to a TOS. The case of Megan Media. In 2008, a compelling court case regarding TOS violation, Lori Drew, a 49 years old woman, was accused of using a fake MySpace account to convince 30 years 13 years old Meyer to commit suicide. How did it come about? After Drew's daughter had a confrontation with Meyer, Drew created an account pretending to be a teenage boy. At first, she used the persona to flirt with Meyer and uncover information about the teenager's social life and relationship to her daughter. Later, when Drew decided she had enough information, she broke off her friendship and telling Meyer that the world would be better off without her. Later that day, a distraught Megan Meyer hanged herself. This case showed the violence of social network service. Crimes on the internet. Although cases such as Drew's have brought about unexpected challenges, other online cases have had less and be less result. One newly clarified aspect of online law involved the use of the internet to commit a crime, regardless of the supposed anonymity of online use. Law enforcement agencies and courts can requisition internet protocol. Internet protocol addresses of suspected lawbreakers and trace their computers and discover their identities. This practice has brought many individuals to trial for criminal offenses committed over the internet. Online hate crimes and anonymity. In 1998, a federal court found a 21-year-old Los Angeles man, Richard Machado, guilty of sending racist death threats to 59 Asian students. This case signaled a new legal development because it was the first trial regarding hate crimes online. Prosecutor Michael Janako said Machado's sentencing. The jury has spoken that to the same. Sorry, the jury has spoken that a line need to be drawn in cyberspace. If you cross that line, you will be subjected to the same criminal penalties you would be as if you use a telephone or post mail to do these kinds of acts. Okay. Sorry, I 죄송합니다. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, President Obama's digital campaign. President Barack Obama has been called the digital candidate for his use of digital technology during his 2008 presidential campaign. On June 8, 2008, following Obama's victory in the Democratic presidential primaries, the New York Times published an article discussing the candidate's use of the internet in his nomination bid, titled "The Wiki Way to the Nomination." The article credits Obama's success to his employment of digital technology. Barack Obama is the victor, and the internet is taking the vote. traditional website. Several existing political websites provide beneficial to the Obama campaign. Founded in 1998, the liberal website MoveOn.org has long used its popularity to and supporters base to mobilize citizens to vote, lobby, or donate funds to Democratic campaigns. With more than 4 million members, MoveOn.org plays a noticeable role in U.S. politics and serves as inspiration for the other like-minded digital efforts. And social networking. More and more digital democrats demand that its users rely on these alternative forms of internet outreach. Social networking site Facebook was the hub of many digital outreach efforts during the 2008 campaign. As of 2010, Barack Obama's official Facebook pages boasts more than 9 million fans, and the Obama administration uses the pages to send messages about the current political climate. And then he using email and text messaging and blah, blah. Okay, last page. Media influence on laws and government. In 2007, the Washington Post published a critical expose on the Walter Reed Army Medical Center. In response to the public outcry, the U.S. Army launched an investigation and set about improving the facility. As demonstrated in this case, media coverage can directly influence people's lives. Politics, broadcast media, and the internet. Throughout their respective histories, radio, television, and the internet have played important roles in politics. As technology developed, citizens began demanding greater levels of information and analysis of media outlets and, in turn, politicians. Here we explore the transformation of politics with the development of media. Radio. Radio was the first medium through which up to the minute breaking news could be broadcast. With its popularization during the 1920s, suddenly information that would previously have been available only later in the newspapers was transmitted directly into American living rooms. The public responded positively, wanting to be more involved in U.S. politics. And television. Today, television remains America's chief source of political news, a relationship that dates back almost to the very beginning of the medium. Political candidates began using television commercials to speak directly to the public as early as 1952. These living room candidates, as they are often called, understood the power of the television screen and the importance of reaching viewers at home. And Nixon and Kennedy debate of 1916, and the war and television. Later in the decade, rising U.S. involvement in Vietnam brought television and public affairs together again in a significant way. The horrors of battle were broadcast directly into U.S. home on a large scale for the first time. The Vietnam War became the first living room war. And the political news programming. The way that news is televised has dramatically changed over the medium's history. Korea's nightly news broadcast dominated the political news cycle. Then in the 1980s, round-the-clock cable news channels appeared. Founded by Ted Turner in 1980s, CNN was the first such network. 24 hours news stations such as CNN have become more popular, and nightly news programs have been forced to change their focus, now emphasizing their local stories that may not be covered by the major news programs. In recent years, become major cultural articles and watchdogs of political issues thanks to the outspoken nature of their hosts and their frank coverage of political issues. Okay, last, online news and politics. Finally, the internet has become an increasingly important force in how Americans receive political information. Websites such as the Huffington Post, Daily Beast, and the Drudge Report are known for breaking news stories and political commentary. Additionally, political groups legally use the internet to organize supporters and influence political issues. Okay, this is the quiz. What is not the three important U.S. regulatory agencies in 20th century? Number one is Radio Commission, and number two, Federal Pipe Commission, and number three is Federal Communication Commission, and number four is Federal Trade Commission. The answer is number two, Federal Pipe Commission. Okay, second question. What is not the U.S. film rating grade? Number one is G, and number two is PG-13, number three is NC-17, and number four is R, and number five is TV-7. And answer is number five, TV-7. And the final question. What is tool of President Obama's digital campaign? Number one is internet chatting and email, text message, radio, and television website. And answer is the number one, internet chatting. Okay, my presentation is over, and thank you for hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chingrok. I see that Frederick is still not with us, so I will proceed and give some final thoughts. Can you hear me okay? Turn off the air conditioner in the background here. Okay, good. I wanted to finish a PowerPoint that actually kind of a combination of a couple of PowerPoints that I had used previously. You cannot hear me. Okay. Let me plug in my microphone. It shouldn't be necessary, but something may have happened to cause it to be necessary. Okay, can you hear me now? I plugged in my microphone. Can you hear me now? Okay. Let me I'm going to go ahead and sign out and sign back in again and hope that it picks up my new technology. Okay.